My family relocated to the Houston area in the city of Huffman, Texas from Round Rock, which is a suburb of Austin, in March. And we moved here for Jason's job. We are a family of martial artists, so we got straight into Taekwondo and Jiu-Jitsu right away. And I just started homeschooling this year, my 13-year-old, so that's super fun.
I'm a senior at St. Thomas High School. I've been running track since 7th grade year, I believe. I'm excited because I'm actually running at Dallas Baptist next year.
We are from Huffman, Texas, and have been together since high school and recently got married in December. We met at lunch in high school. He was a basketball player and I was a cheerleader.
I've got a beautiful wife, married 16 years, Jessica, and I've got 3 kids that are 13, 11, and 8.
I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. I am legally blind. And a single parent.
I am a CIO, Chief Information Officer for a local company. Moved to Houston about 3.5 years ago. My wife and I moved here from Atlanta.
My family is a very international family. My parents were missionaries in Peru. My sister is adopted from Peru. And then I went to Spain to do missionary work, so I ended up marrying a Spaniard.
I had the advantage of growing up in a Christian home where church was expected and the values were taught, and I appreciated that experience as I grew up. Maybe not all the time, but certainly looking back on it as I became a parent, I was glad that I had that foundation and try and share that with my family as it developed. We have 3 adult daughters. They live in both Atlanta and Chicago. So when we got here, we didn't really know anyone, and that's what led us to finding a church home that we could anchor into and be a part of.
My husband, he was my parents' student, so we met when we were like little kids.
I'm a physicist and as a physics professor at the University of Houston. What I teach in the university, it's very logic sense.
We never really went to church growing up, or I guess it was very rare. We never really talked about God. So I didn't even really know what it meant to say that, you know, we have faith or that we're being faithful or anything like that.
We didn't really go to church. We didn't really grow up in a Christian household. So I didn't really grow up knowing who Christ was and didn't have a relationship with him at all.
I probably went to church a handful of times before I was 22 years old, so it was pretty much non-existent.
I grew up going to church sporadically, mainly with my grandparents. I kind of just fell off and kind of went down some tough paths in my teen years and my early 20s.
Growing up, I always felt this really weird pull or draw into a church setting, and didn't pan out for just some different reasons. I just never had much solid connection of what it was. You know, I knew there was something, but it just wasn't what I would call or consider a strong faith.
Growing up, my home life wasn't the easiest. My parents were financially, we were kind of unstable because of my mother's single income. My parents kind of clashed, and it wasn't the best environment for me to be in, and it affected me in a very negative way. There was many nights where I was in my bed crying because it's like, why are these my circumstances? Like, why was I dealt this hand in life?
When I was younger, my mom would take me to church, but it was a really fancy church, and all of the people there were over 70 and there were barely any kids, and I would go to the Bible studies, but I just never understood it. We just kind of stopped going to church.
I think after I graduated from high school, getting around with hanging out with the wrong friends, peer pressure. I still was going to church, but it was like playing on the teeter-totter on the playground. Sometimes you're hot, sometimes you're cold for God.
I've looked to friends that weren't the best to be around. I looked to like my sports, which was a positive thing, but it was also a negative thing because there were some points where I idolized my sport.
Dad had a drinking problem. He would drink, he would get angry, and that led to a lot of problems in the house. Yeah, Mom was, she was a very, very loving person. I think all of that was very difficult for her to deal with, and eventually she began to have a relationship with another man, and that led to a terrible divorce.
In China, honestly, religion was not part of the life at the time.
When we grew up, we were educated. There's no God. You have to work hard. In 1991, when I came to U.S. join my husband, I remembered vividly. I was very surprised when people told me that in U.S. people go to church to worship God.
On my commute to work, I listened to talk radio, and Pastor Young was doing the Church Awake, Not Woke series. And I came home and mentioned to Denise, hey, we need to check this place out. So we started visiting, sat in the back and took part in services for a while, went through the Christmas season and those programs. That kind of led to the discussions that eventually led to us deciding, all right, we'll join the Second Family. And we officially did that in May of 2023.
Javier got sick 2011. He was diagnosed with aplastic anemia. There's no cure for that, and we went through a very hard time with platelet transplants and transfusions, and his body killing his immune system within a couple of days from the transplant. 2019, Javier came home and he said, I'm done. I'm tired. Those were very hard words for me to hear because I'm human. In February, he went into the hospital with double pneumonia. It was a very trying and testing time for our family. Faith being questioned, wondering if my prayers were even going above the ceiling. In the end, his body just could not resist anymore. There was a peace over his face that I can't explain. And I knew he'd gone home.
So Denise was my partner for over 40 years. And she was a wonderful mom, wonderful wife. She was very organized. She kept our household running. And she was a good Christian, solid in her foundation. It was August that I got the call that Denise had passed away. It was sudden, it wasn't expected. We had no warning, so I was certainly devastated by that and lost for a while.
I was not born this way. I lost my vision in 2017. I was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. I had to go through chemo and steroids. I didn't understand why God was doing it to me. I didn't understand what I had done so wrong in life to deserve for him to take my eyesight away. I was feeling as if he had forgotten about me. I was feeling lost. I was feeling hopeless.
As I grew up, graduated high school, went to college, I met my wife there in college. Those first few years of marriage were extremely difficult. My wife and I are opposites in a lot of ways. It was difficult working out, what that should look like. I didn't have a guide. I didn't understand really how to love my wife. I didn't know what it meant to be a good husband, never really had great examples of that. And I just found myself searching for what is it that we're missing? What is it that we're not doing right?
I think for Dulce, it was a lot harder than for Sophia. Dulce had time with Javier when he was still well. And Sophia was only a year old when Javier was diagnosed. And I think that this point in Dulce's life of questioning and missing her father so much. Can I share that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Brought her to questioning being alive. She went through some hard times and even contemplated suicide, which is one of the reasons that I reached out to Second.
I literally remember the day that I saw all of my girls. I have 4 beautiful girls. I remember that day clear. That was the last time I saw their faces. I felt as though I just wanted to give up. One night I remember praying and I told God, I said, if you love me like you said you love me, you will take me because I don't want to live like this. That was the first time I heard God speak to me. And he said to me, not so. He told me that I was going to be his living, walking testimony. And if I would pick myself up, then he would help pick me up. And from that moment on, I made a firm decision to live for God.
I have a cousin who is very strong in her faith, and I remember sharing with her, I'm pretty bad. And she said, I'm at work, but I'm gonna step outside. I'm gonna say a prayer for you. And I remember in that prayer, I felt God talk to me. I just remember feeling like you need to get to know Jesus. That's what you're missing. That's what you've been missing your entire adult life. And it's time for you to really be obedient is what I was getting the call to do.
I really, to this day, I do not understand what hit me. But my mom just kind of picked me up one day from school and I was just like, something had to change. We were just kind of talking about church and stuff like that. And I was like, I kind of want to find some closer group of friends that are kind of centered in Christ.
So we started attending a church. As I learned more and more, I began to see how sinful I really was, how selfish I was. And so it was through all that teaching that I began to really see that God has a plan for us and a purpose for us.
Throughout high school and college, God was never really even a mention in our relationship. But once we graduated college and came home, we started thinking more about our future and a family and kind of just got in the conversation of how we wanted to raise our children in a Christian household. I actually expressed some of that to a friend that was at Second, and she was like, okay, well, if you're interested in getting a foundation for a good marriage and how to raise your children, then it sounds like you need to join the premarital Bible study class. And it completely changed our lives.
With us having a real strong draw to martial arts, that was something that, we had stopped doing right before we left. And thanks to Ava, one day she came to us and just said, Dad, I feel like something's missing. I want to train again. I want to get back on the mat.
If we had moved anywhere else, we probably would have gone to a different martial arts school. But where we moved, the closest school happened to be the only completely Christian Taekwondo school I have ever seen ever.
So one day I sat down with our head instructor at the school there and just told him I think I need some help and just some support. And he asked me, he's like, do you believe in God? And I was like, I don't know. His wife had invited Lauren to come to church with us. He's like, why don't you come check it out? There was just, again, this sense of It's time to do things the right way. It's time to do things as a husband, as a father, just as a real man of the family.
I would drive on 59 and I would see the sign, Second Baptist. And I was always curious to go there and see what was going on. They always seemed to be having so much fun. It was actually on a Facebook post that I saw an event that had just happened for girls. So I reached out to Dulce and asked her if she wanted to go, and she said yes, which was very much a surprise to me. At this point in time in my life, I was not really going to church. She got really plugged in, and she'd come wake me up, and she's like, hey, I've got to be at church by 9 o'clock in the morning. I would just drop her off and go back home. I wasn't there yet. I wasn't ready. It's not that I'd lost my faith. It's not that I didn't believe in God. I was just really dealing with some struggles and some depression and anxiety in my own life.
So it was a next door neighbor that I had met at our pool, our neighborhood pool one day, and she invited me to Second. I booked my Metro because I use Metro for transportation. And the girls and I came that Sunday, and I came into, there's a beautiful church that I can't see, but my girls were in awe how they were taken into the children's ministry at that time. What really got me and made me happy was my daughter Destiny. She has autism. They have a ministry here at this church, Promised Land, for a child with a disability.
Over time, we had heard more and more about what was happening here at Second. And so we came to Second about a year ago. We visited actually during Christmas service. I can remember thinking, yeah, this is definitely the home for us.
The first person I called from the ER was a pastor from Second who was immediately available and helped us, I and my daughters, through a very difficult time in our lives.
So I remember the first time that we came into Second Baptist and walked in and just seeing it, it kind of felt like this warm blanket was set up on my shoulders, and it was just like the support there. And it wasn't that awkward, just kind of cheesiness of it that I'd ever felt before. It wasn't anything uncomfortable. It was just like a connection that I felt.
I was a little overwhelmed at first because there was a lot of people there, but then the first thing that happened was, I believe one of my closest friends to this day, Dane, he came up to me and he was like, I'm glad you're here. That's where it kind of just it took off. That was a starting point.
When I made the decision to join Second, I had people that encouraged me to go to Bible study, to be a part of the ministries here at this church, because there's so many ministries.
1 year later, I joined a Bible study group. And so little by little, step by step, I get to know more about God. Finally, I said I want to receive God as my Savior. I want to follow Jesus.
I sort of played the supporting role. And as a scientist, I always trying to think the logic, the evidence, all sorts of those things. I started to say, okay, there's no way you can figure this out by yourself, use the logic, use the physics. Not everything has a logic. The universe is formed by Big Bang. There's Big Bang theory. You probably know this very well. But then I started to ask a question, and then who created the Big Bang? That kind of thing. So I fear God is the creator for the whole world, the whole universe.
We got into a Bible study. When we sat in, to service, it was just, there was this aha moment, this light bulb moment of this is it.
And Jason just really started opening up and chatting with me about it. She was getting stronger in her faith, and I would just say over the course of a few months, they always say if you want to come after service, come up to the front. And we joined, he accepted Christ that day. And it was oh my gosh, God is so good.
It's October 1st, 2023. I was baptized and then become official member of Second Baptist Church. It's a very unbelievable feeling.
Second, at the time I was going through this, and it's only been 5 months, so I'm still going through it, but they were there in practical sense. They were there in friendship sense. The people that we'd gotten to know in the relatively short time we've been here were a very important part of me getting through it and staying strong for my kids. But I think God put us in second for what was coming.
She's actually the reason we're at second and loving every minute of it. And then she got her sister involved in
Next Level, but now I'm in J-High with Dulce.
in Next Level. Did you like Next Level? Now they're both in J-High. And shout out to my J-High team and all the youth pastors. And I don't know what they did. I don't know what God did, but now I'm volunteering.
I think it's just the community. We've just met so many incredible people that we would have never knew existed if we didn't just take the next step in joining Second. People that have impacted our lives and just the opportunity that we have to serve.
When I say a beautiful church, I'm not talking about the foundation or the building. I'm talking about the people here at Second. That's that agape love, that godly love. And it's not something that you can fake. It's real.
The thing I'm most grateful for about Second is that it's firmly planted in the truth. It's not just for show, it's real. You know, that is a great comfort when you're going through a path that you've never gone through before.
I see just such a need in like my generation for God, and people want to throw out God in our generation. It's just terrible because we can't live without him. My friends at my school and my classmates are suffering, and you could see it. I believe I felt a conviction to actually do ministry full time. I was a kid that was hopeless. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, and now I see him just moving in my life, and I want to work for him and serve his people.
Dulce went to beach retreat. I'm just sitting on the couch that night and I get a text message and they say, Dulce's getting baptized. Join the live whatever it is. I join and lo and behold, my daughter Dulce has given her life to Christ at beach retreat and is getting baptized in front of I don't know how many young people. And I'm watching it on my phone and tears are flowing from my eyes. It was an answer to prayer that I had being a parent and praying for your child, and then actually just seeing everything that God is doing in her life, transforming her life from wanting to not exist to deal with the hurt and the pain of the sting of death, to now seeing her flourish and be reborn and relive that purpose that God created her for.
I got baptized the Sunday after I joined Second. When I came up out of that water, I was praising God for washing everything away.
I decided to get baptized and fully just raise that flag, and it was honestly an amazing moment. I remember getting dunked in the water and I come up and it was just, I felt so much joy. And I just wanted to splash everyone in the room because I was so happy.
And I'll never forget, Ava walked out one morning and she's like, Mom, I've decided that I want to be baptized, but I want to do it when Daddy's ready. And I looked at her and I was like, your father just told me last night he wants to be baptized when I get baptized. And so I had my baptism scheduled for October 8th. And this was October, I don't know what, 4th or something like that. I couldn't have even imagined that not only did I finally get to a point where my faith was so solidified and my relationship with Christ is so strong, you can't shake it. But then our daughter, who made that decision on her own accord, her own conviction, and Jason. And then Jason called me later in that day after I let him know it had been scheduled. He's like, can you please go get me a men's Bible? And I'm like, what is happening? It's just one blessing after another, after another, after. I'm like, I will get you a men's Bible. I'll get you the tabs. It's on. I'll get you highlighters. Let's go. 6 months ago, different family.
My eyes have been opened to what it is that he's really doing, the work that he's doing in my life and the lives of others. He's become to me the perfect father. You know, I spent so long looking for a good father, ironically, to later realize that I have that perfect father, that he's always been there. He's always been providing for me.
Having Christ in our marriage and Christ in our family just brought us together in a way that I didn't think was ever imaginable. I mean, we love each other for sure, but to have a bond through Christ is just, I don't think it's something I'd ever change for the world.
We all definitely have had like a rhythm before. Like it was always just this, then this, and this, then this, repeat. He's definitely changed our rhythm.
I'm glad that he never let go of me. He kept his hands over me, and his arms was always wide open to love me, to remind me that he was still there, that he never left me. When I wake up in the morning and I open my eyes physically, spiritually, I'm talking to my Father.
He's a father to the fatherless. He's a husband to the widow. He's an amazing creator, and he's created us with a plan and a purpose.
You know, the words that he spoke were true, you know, yesterday as they are today and will be forever. I have hope. Yeah, I'm gonna see her again someday.
We didn't know Jesus when we were in China, but after we study Bible, we know that Jesus is our Savior.
Jesus means everything to me, to my family, to my kids.
God is faithful, and he preserved her life from death, and she's now going to experience eternal life with Christ. So I'm forever grateful to Second for having taken us in, for nurturing my kids, for listening to them, for giving them wise counsel, for wrapping their arms around them and around me as a widow. I have no words to thank Second for being our family.